You ever look at your grocery bill and wonder, wait, why is this so high? Or maybe you've noticed that sometimes finding a job feels way harder than it should be. Well, those aren't just random feelings. They're part of a much bigger story. And today, we're diving into that story. An introduction to macroeconomics.
All right, to really get this, we've got to go back in time. Picture it, the year is 1929. The world is humming along and then, boom, the whole global economy just collapses. We're not talking about a little recession here. This was the Great Depression, a crisis so huge, so devastating, it literally forced us to rewrite the rulebook on economics.
And if you want to understand just how bad it was for real people, just look at this number, 25%. In the US, unemployment went from a pretty normal 3% to a staggering 25%. Think about that. 1 out of every 4 people who wanted a job couldn't find one. Just incredible.
And it wasn't just about jobs. The entire system was grinding to a halt. A country's whole economic engine, its output, fell by a third. People stopped buying things, so factories just shut down. They went dark. And this wasn't just an American problem. It spread across the globe like a contagion, wrecking trade, destroying incomes, and just causing misery everywhere.
So you can imagine everyone was asking the same terrifying question. The way we thought the economy worked, it just wasn't holding up. The old theories were useless. So why? Why couldn't the smartest economic minds of the day figure this out, let alone fix it?
Well, this total chaos set the stage for a huge intellectual battle, a showdown between two completely different visions for how an economy should run.
In one corner, you had the old guard, the established wisdom. This was the thinking of guys like Adam Smith, the father of modern economics. This was what everyone called the classical theory.
And their core belief was pretty simple, really. Just leave it alone. The economy, they thought, is like a self-healing organism. If people lose jobs, wages will naturally drop, which makes it cheaper for businesses to hire them back. And poof, everything just sorts itself out. Hands off.
But then, this guy, John Maynard Keynes, steps onto the scene, and he looks at the millions of people out of work and says, guys, it's not fixing itself. He had this revolutionary idea that wages and prices are sticky. They don't just fall on command. And his solution was absolute heresy at the time. The government has to get involved. It has to step in and jumpstart the engine.
Keynes put it perfectly. He said the real problem wasn't getting people to grasp the new ideas. The hard part was getting them to let go of the old ones, even when they were staring failure right in the face.
So, out of this epic clash of ideas, a whole new way of looking at the economy was born, a big-picture approach.
And that's what we call macroeconomics. It's the field that stops looking at individual trees and starts looking at the entire forest. It's not about one person's budget or one company's profits. It's about the health and performance of the whole darn system.
And the name says it all, right? It comes from the Greek makros, which just means large. It's all about that zoomed-out, wide-angle view.
So here's a super simple way to think about it. Microeconomics might ask, why does this one loaf of bread cost $3? But macroeconomics asks, why did my entire grocery bill go up by 10% this year? See the difference? Individual versus the whole shebang.
Okay, so if macroeconomics is looking at the big picture, what's it actually watching? What are the gauges on the dashboard it's monitoring?
First and foremost, you've got the big one. National income, or what we all know as GDP. That's basically the country's total price tag, the value of all the goods and services it makes in a year.
Then it's constantly checking for inflation and deflation. In other words, are prices in general going up or down? This is huge because it tells you if the money in your pocket is buying less today than it did yesterday.
And of course, it's tracking economic growth. Is the whole pie getting bigger? Are we producing more this year than last year? This is absolutely key because that's ultimately how a country gets wealthier and improves everyone's quality of life.
So there you have it. That's the main dashboard. You got GDP, jobs, prices, trade. And the crucial thing to remember is that none of these dials works in isolation. They're all connected. You turn one and the others start to move. Macroeconomics is really the science of understanding how that incredibly complex machine works.
So if the economy is this big machine, who's in the driver's seat? Well, macroeconomics breaks it down into 4 main groups of players.
First, there's the household sector. That's you, me, all of us as consumers. Then you've got the businesses or firms. Number 3 is the government. And last but not least, the external sector, which is just a fancy way of saying the rest of the world that we buy from and sell to.
These four groups are what economists call economic agents. And it's the millions of decisions they make every single day. What you decide to buy, what a company decides to build, how the government decides to tax and spend. It's the sum of all those choices that makes the economy go.
And that brings us right back to where we started. This whole field, macroeconomics, was forged in the fire of a global crisis. It gave us a new lens, a new set of tools to see that big picture. And the question that hangs over us today is it enough? Can we use this knowledge to steer the ship through the storms of today and tomorrow, and can we actually prevent the next great crisis? That, right there, is the billion-dollar question that economists are still wrestling with.